Welcome to episode 238 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, June 15, 2016. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Marcus Couch. And Marcus, hey, Cavs are going to Game 6, baby.
Congratulations. Savor the flavor because it will not last.
That's right. Maybe it'll be a repeat of last year where Cleveland gets to host the party for the opposing team.
Yes, well, we
I
gotta
hope
do it
not.
somewhere.
I hope not. It'd be awesome to get to a Game 7 where we're either going to have back-to-back historic championships in a historic season with the Golden State Warriors, or first team ever in NBA history to come back from a 3-1 deficit to win the series. Anyways, looking forward to that. I know Game 6 is Thursday. I'll be watching. Other than that, anything new in your neck of the woods over there in California?
Well, I've been doing a lot with the platform, with Membership Coach, and doing a lot of stuff with WooCommerce, finding a lot more plugins, and just it's been a whirlwind of a week. I'm gaining a whole new experience level now with PowerPoint, putting all the videos together and things. So really nice. And I gotta say, we talk about Envatos sometimes in terms of either themes or plugins, but being able to go there and just buy like a 200 slide deck that's already laid out for you for $20, oh, what a blessing. So thankful for that resource. But no, otherwise it's just been projects and testing out new plugins.
Well, this past weekend, I went to WordCamp Northeast Ohio, held in Kent, Ohio, near Kent, the infamous Kent State University. And I'll tell everybody about my experience and what I thought of the event later on in the show. But our guest tonight is someone who also attended the same event, had the privilege to meet him face to face. Somebody that's been in the WordPress community for a number of years now. He's created a couple of different sites and whatnot. His name is Adam Warner, and he is the WordPress evangelist for SiteLock, which is a website security company. And he's also the co-founder of Foo Plugins. I know they have a plugin on the Foo Gallery. You may be familiar with that one. And he's also the founder of WPModder.com, which is no longer online. It is now Succeed with WordPress or Succeed with WP.com. We're going to get into all kinds of cool stuff here tonight. And Adam, long time no see. Pleasure to meet you this past weekend, and thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff and Marcus. It was a long time coming, Jeff. We had been communicating online for a great number of years, and it was great to finally meet you in person as well.
So let's start off at the very beginning here. I got involved in WordPress about 2007-ish. Tell us about your WordPress origin story. How did you get into it?
Well, at the time I discovered WordPress, I was working full-time doing customer service for an audiobook publisher, and I was running a DVD memorial business on the side, partnered with a local funeral home, taking photos of loved ones, putting them together in slideshows, making movies using the Ken Burns effect in iMovie, burning DVDs, and then delivering those to the local funeral home. So for that business, I had a static HTML website, and I was looking for a faster way to update it and also looking to add some blogging to it. And I started looking around, found a few open source projects. WordPress was the one that spoke to me visually, the one I understood the most, and that was in 2005.
Wow, that's way back. That's before 2.3. That's in the 1-point-something branch.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly, but I think it was around 1.5 or something, but I'm not sure.
So the ease of managing your content and updating it, that kind of sold you on WordPress. I mean, how far did you get with some of the other solutions before you came across WordPress?
Well, I dug in pretty deep into, I believe it was Joomla at the time, probably Drupal.
Yeah, me too.
Movable type, Hikari, I think, was one. I think I probably installed just 4 or 5 different solutions and explored those, and like I said, just WordPress, the admin area just made the most sense to me. Joomla is very structured and linear and very left-brained, and I'm kind of a right-brain, left-brain guy, so I need something to make sense to me face to face before it makes sense in my brain, and WordPress seemed to fit that for me.
What, do you got something against modules and extensions? Come on now.
No, absolutely not. Other than maybe my ability to compute mentally had something against it.
Yeah, it's sort of funny. It reminds me back in the day when I used to have a website and it had cPanel installed. It came with Fantastico, and I was looking for different blogging solutions. So I started going down the list of all the things I can install, and I tried them one by one, like E107, Post Nuke, PHP Nuke, and just went down the list. And eventually, for a while there, I was the biggest fan of Joomla, and then got to the point where I needed something that had commenting, and Joomla at the time, you had to purchase a paid extension to have comments, and I was like, well, I didn't want to have any of that. And I saw that WordPress has it out of the box, so I ended up going with WordPress. And my first try, it was too much for me, but and the second go around, I just fell in love with it, and well, sort of the rest is history. That's how I really got into to WordPress. So tell us a little bit about now. I started WP Tavern back in about 2009. I wrote articles on weblogtoolscollection.com. When did you launch WP Modder, and what was that site all about?
Well, it was originally WordPressModder.org, I think, and then of course we had to remove the WordPress eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started that site. I think it was 2008. Really, I'm not sure if it was. I think it was 2008, and I started it because for those 2 years between 2006 2008, I really started to dig into WordPress and learn more about theme development and plugin development, and tried my hand at both. And as I would learn how to do things with different plugins and little code snippets and stuff, I was kind of blogging to myself. But then I decided, well, maybe someone else could benefit. So that's when I started WordPress Modder. And WordPress Modder stands for modifier or modification. It's not the it's not the most creative name in the world, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but that's what it stood for. So that's what I did. I started doing WordPress tutorials.
And this was back in the early days where WordPress was starting to come into its own, and not much was known about using filters and hooks and actions and parameters and the crazy directions that I had to follow when installing the theme, or when it add a specific part of a plugin to a certain area on the page. So how did you see, once you started blogging to the public, things that you were learning? Did you experience rapid growth, or did you notice an influx of traffic?
Well, I think my first group of visitors, I got involved in video blogging in a Yahoo video blogging group in 2003, and that group had a small core of people who really were passionate about bringing video to the web at that time and making it easier to do so. And they also had found WordPress in the 2005, 2006, 2007 time frame. So when I was talking to that group on the Yahoo forums, that just sounds weird, doesn't it?
Or Yahoo user groups, or what it used to be called.
Yeah, user groups.
In some instances, Yahoo Groups works even better than BuddyPress.
Oh, geez, so let's not go down that road already.
I said in some instances. Come on.
That sounds like a quote to be tweeted. So what I did was, because I was into video, and because at that point there weren't really any themes that were video specific, and it was kind of difficult to get video into WordPress. But of course, the plugins like I think it was Video Viper tags or something was just coming along. So I made a video-centric WordPress theme. It was the first theme I ever made, and it had kind of a dual column thing, so you had videos side by side, and it was a good experiment. So I would say, to answer your question, that was my first group of readers, I would say, and then from there it started fanning out. I probably shared some links on the .org forums, and then at that point I wasn't really into tracking my traffic. I just kind of decided I was successful when I got a few people commenting on my posts. And that's always a good feeling, right? When you first start out and you get people engaged. So that was probably the beginning, and that is what really hooked me. When I knew that other people were reading and benefiting, then that's when I kind of dug in.
Now, throughout your experience in publishing articles and getting that experience under your belt after a few years, did this translate into a business opportunity for you to perhaps take on clients or become a consultant and build other WordPress sites for people?
Yeah, so I was all over the place. I was experimenting with e-commerce at the time. Let's see, this is 2005 when I found it. I was running that side business. 2006-07, I was still working full-time for this audiobook publisher, and at that point, I moved to the IT department. And it's because of my tinkering with WordPress and my constant talking about WordPress and blogging and trying to get them to start a blog for the company, that sort of thing. My cubicle happened to back up next to the IT manager's cubicle. And he and I became friendly, and then a position opened up in that department for a junior web developer, and I went for it and got the position, and then all my days were spent updating a few websites in classic ASP, which I had never seen before. So it was completely different from the WordPress world that I came into, so I learned a bit more programming then, but I should preface all this with saying I am not a developer, not a designer, and I've learned that through the years of trial and error. So all the while doing WordPress stuff on the side. So then, because I was happy doing that, then I started to get into making sites for other people, and it's your classic story. First, it was family and friends, and then it was word of mouth from people in my hometown, and then et cetera, further, extensions further away from me and that sort of thing. So I did that for a few years, on and off, because when I was working for that audiobook publisher, we were then acquired by Amazon. So I became an Amazon employee, and my wife happened to work for the same company, so we were both Amazon employees. They gave us some stock options. We had to wait 2 years for those to vest, so we were counting on that to put some money in the bank and buy our first home at that point.
Was that Digital River? What company was that?
Brilliance Audio in West Michigan. Yeah, they Amazon acquired Audible, I believe, about the same time as Brilliance Audio. So now they're knee deep in audiobook publishing. And at the time, we were doing cassettes still, and CDs, and then of course the cutting edge technology of MP3s.
Well, Vision's 2020, but I would say you did pretty well with the stock options, I have to imagine.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't get those stock options, and neither did my wife. By no fault of anyone else's but our own, because my wife is originally from Florida, and she had been up in Michigan in the cold winters for 4 years at that point, and it was time to get back home to Florida for her because of lack of sunlight and family and friends, and of course I had lived in Florida before coming back up to Michigan, and I was feeling the yearn to get back down there as well. So with my new title as web developer for Amazon.com, I started putting out feelers in Florida, and I just happened to have a cousin who worked for a ventilation systems company down here, and he told me they were looking for someone to manage their website. So I came on with a company down here in Sarasota, Florida, and became their web development and internet marketing manager, and took them from a 6-page HTML website to a WordPress multi-site install with 8 different properties covering ventilation fans, those big silver mushroom things you see on top of buildings. So it was pretty sexy product, pretty interesting, and I say that between sarcasm tags as far as fans are concerned, but it led me back to Florida and put me knee deep in WordPress every single day.
So Let's fast forward a little bit here. When did you launch Foo Plugins? I mean, I know you started building some websites, you managed some WordPress sites on your own. You also published a lot of tutorials and content, but eventually you get into this thing called plugin development, and you're either or you're the co-founder of Foo Plugins. So tell us about the genesis of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm working for this ventilation systems company, and I'm still doing things on the side because I've always had to do something entrepreneurial. It's just something I've always done, starting with a paper route when I was 12 years old. It's never stopped. So I was doing client work here and there in my evening and weekend hours, and I had a client that needed a Gravity Forms extension built. So I was trying to do it myself. I was on the Gravity Forms forums saying, why isn't this working? This guy named Brad started talking back and forth with me and helping me out, and we decided that I would just hire him to create this extension. And so we continued the conversation offline. And as I referenced earlier, it became clear to me I am not a hardcore developer. I can look at code and kind of sort of understand what's going on. But I still was deeply ingrained in the WordPress community, the WordPress world. I'm now what Tom McFarlane has coined an implementer. So I knew what plugins were available to do what pieces to put together. So I had all these plugin ideas, and I wanted to get into selling them. And selling them for me meant testing the waters in places like Warrior Forum and other places where I was already selling info products, PDFs. I had a how to install WordPress multi-site on HostGator course. So I said, I have all these ideas. He said, well, I have a bunch of plugins in the repo, and I'm selling one on Code Canyon now, but I want to do another one. And I said, okay. So we started talking about that, and I said, well, what I've really wanted personally is the ability to click an image and have it open in a lightbox and then have social sharing icons on top of that. And he said, well, as a matter of fact, look at this zip I just sent you, and it happened to be a responsive lightbox.
As if the stars aligned just for you.
Exactly, and Brad is in South Africa, and I'm in Florida, so it's weird how it happened, right? Meet on the forums, take it offline. We happen to have the similar idea, so we worked on that together. We worked on the scope of that, and that became our first product ever, which was FooBox, and it's a responsive lightbox with social sharing. And I said, let me market this, and you just handle all the development, and then I'll prove to you that I can sell it, and we'll see how it goes. And he was very against marketing stuff in places like Warrior Forum, and not that Warrior Forum is bad, but there's a lot of great things there and great people, but you kind of have to weed through all the people that are taking shortcuts and doing trial and error stuff like I was. And not that I was taking shortcuts, but trying my hand at selling something.
Well, hold on one second. Let's
Yeah.
pause right there. Okay,
Yeah.
so Warrior Forum it's a place where internet marketers and developers and things like, well, not necessarily developers, but implementers, as you describe it. How did you find that process in terms of introducing WordPress items into that environment?
Well, I had been there, right, selling some PDFs and video courses, and WordPress was a well-known tool to that community. So a lot of people built their sites in WordPress, their sales funnels, and there were quite a few plugins being sold. So it was already there when I got there.
Okay.
But a lot of those were plugins specifically for calls to action, pop-up opt-ins, that sort of thing. So long story short, so we put this up on Warrior Forum, and I created the sales page. I learned how to do that whole process, and it sold really well. And I thought, okay, excellent, let's do this. And Brad said, okay, let's do this. So we sold that on its own site for about 8 months using eJunkie as the payment processor. And then fast forward, well, about 8 months, I guess, the company that I was working for, the ventilation systems company, and I'd been there now for 4 years. This is 2012, early 2012, announced that the parent company was closing the office in Sarasota, Florida. So I had the option to decide to try and move to Sweden or to try and move to Kansas and continue with the company. And because my wife was pregnant with our first son, I decided to take the leap and go full-time and create this Foo Plugins thing that Brad and I had been talking about, because he had a bunch of other plugins. We had ideas. We were kicking back and forth. So I started working from home a month before our first son was born, and that was the same month that we launched Foo Plugins officially at WordCamp Miami 2012.
So that was a lot of risk. You didn't have a job, plus pregnant wife.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a roll of the dice.
There's two pivotal.
You got it.
Moments in my life. One was in 2001 when I decided to, when I had been laid off from a manufacturing job, and decided to move to Florida with my dog and all I had. That was one, and that brought me through a series of changes, which brought me to my wife. And then this would be the second. So there's 2 times in my life I've just taken the big leap, and it's scary. And I cashed out my 401k, and I borrowed money from family.
Yeah.
Yeah, super scary. And you know, so far so good. It's 4.5 years later almost. Well, 4 years and a few months. So what that did, working from home, was allowed me to be home with my wife and son, and then when she went back to work, I was home with our baby, and was able to do everything that needed to be done with that. And then of course we had some family helping out, so I could take him over there and work during the days and build the business.
So let's fast forward a little bit to this thing called a crowdfunding campaign, and the title of the campaign was Democratizing WordPress Tutorials, and you were asking for $79,000, which is a large sum of money. So first off, why did you create the crowdfunding campaign? What was its purpose? And unfortunately, you only ended up with $855, which, you know, is like, wow.
Yeah, it was a big wah wah wah, right? So the reason that came about is because I was feeling that itch to get back to doing what it is I loved to do. So all my time was being spent in business development for Foo Plugins and marketing of Foo Plugins, and writing tutorials on that site didn't feel like the right thing to do at the time. And I wanted to get back to where I started with WordPress, because I was still very active in the Facebook groups and the .org forums, and I felt like I still had help to give to other people. However, in order to do that, I needed to get paid for it full time. So through a series of number crunching, that's the number I came to, which in retrospect, the whole project and that amount was the wrong path to take, because that tutorial, you know, Jeff, when you and I started, there were only probably you and I and a few other people writing tutorials about WordPress stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, it's just such an oversaturated market because everybody's writing WordPress.
You know, these days, you got a question. Usually in the first page of results, you're probably going to end up on WPBeginner.com. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, or you know, or WP Beginner, WP Mayor, WP Lift, all these other places, and not to mention plugin and theme companies who have also been cranking out tutorials left and right. So I had talked to my business partner about it, and you know, I said, I'm doing this because this is what needs to be done for my mental health and for just to follow my passion and to see if it's a thing. But like I said, in retrospect, it was the wrong decision, or maybe not, because I feel like I learn from everything that I do, whether it's successful or not. So now I'm confident that that's not my path, at least not with a dedicated site toward that. I think my tutorials and my teaching can be better utilized elsewhere.
You and I talked about this a little bit last weekend, and I know something you had mentioned to me that I thought was interesting is that perhaps the WordPress community either didn't see the value or just didn't value the content and your ability to produce these tutorials, or didn't respond to them as much as maybe you did.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it. I think it was, in retrospect, I think it was too personal to me. I think that I perhaps have given myself, I don't know the right way to term it, but I don't know. I don't want to say I was too big for my britches, but maybe that was part of it. Maybe I thought my content was more valuable than it actually is, or it could have been any number of things. Maybe I didn't market it right. Maybe my description of what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it didn't resonate with people the way that it did within myself. It could have been any number of reasons. It could have been that high funding goal that turned people off.
Yeah,
It could have.
I tell you what, I saw that and I got sticker shock.
Yeah. Well, you're not the only one. But
Well, that scenario is not uncommon because, and I actually just did a whole write-up and a tutorial about it for my upcoming site. And the problem is a lot of times when you get involved in making tutorials, we lose sight of the fact that the end result has to be results for the person at the other end. It's not just, hey, let me teach you the cool way to do this. Well, what are they going to do with that? And that's sometimes the gap in those training lessons. And it sounds like maybe, I don't know, sometimes like you get more competitive on having better and maybe more visually appealing stuff than the next guy, rather than worrying about the end user and what they're getting out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very fair point. There has to be something at the end that people know they're going to be able to take action on or receive. And part of that, I just want to speak to that high number because it does seem ludicrous. But that high number was included salaries for 2 other team members as well. So my intention was to create a small team to run the site and to pump out these tutorials and to make sure that it was 5 posts a week and nonstop. So when you break it down like that, it was really full-time salaries for 3 people, including hosting costs and this and that. But yeah, that's a great point.
So I mean, this is around the time your first son was due to be born. Oh, well, never mind. That was part of the other story. I didn't mean to bring that up. But so the crowdfunding campaign doesn't make as much money as you're asking for. What happens? Do you shutter the entire idea? Do you keep the site online, or how do you stay afloat? And really, how did you come back from that emotionally?
Well, like you and I were talking about, it was not surprising. It was disappointing, and in retrospect, I'm almost like I'm embarrassed by it almost, because I value my reputation within the community, if I have one at all, and I value the community itself. And the last thing I wanted to be seen as someone who was trying to take advantage of the community by raising a bunch of money, right? So, it took a few weeks of me thinking about what I did, what went wrong, why it didn't go the way I was hoping it would go, but then I just had to move forward, right? So my family is at stake. Food Plugins at this point is doing really well, but we're pumping a lot of revenue, a lot of profit back into the business, and we get to a plateau, and then we go up, and then we plateau for a while, and then we go up. So it was difficult. The site is still online, Succeed with WP. It's still my passion. However, I have to focus my attention elsewhere, and that is making sure that I'm doing something daily that I love, that I'm making a decent living at.
Well, speaking of doing something that you love on a daily basis, you happen to obtain a new role lately, a new job for a company known as SiteLock. It's a web security company, and it's this job title known as WordPress Evangelist. And I chuckle when I hear this, and I see this job title being advertised around in the WordPress community, because I'm thinking, well, where was that job title back in 2009 when I started? But in retrospect, fast forward all these years later, and I got like the ultimate cool WordPress evangelism role by writing about the software every day in WP Tavern, and I get paid pretty good at it. It's turned out to be a pretty good living. So tell us about, how did you land that gig, and in your definition, what does a WordPress evangelist do? What does that mean?
Sure. Well, first I should say why I was looking. Right.
Okay.
So Foo Plugins was still going strong, but part of the reason why I started looking was because I was starting to feel isolated. I've been working from my garage office for 4+ years and not really getting out socially, and that is who I am, and it's what I do. I love to be social. I love to talk to people, shake hands. And you can do that to an extent online, but there's nothing like going to a WordCamp or going to meetups. And with now 2 young kids, they're 4 and 2, it was increasingly difficult to do that. So I started looking for other jobs, and specifically looking into the WordPress community, specifically for an evangelist position, because I had seen what Mendel Kerlin had been able to accomplish with GoDaddy.
You see what kind of cake gig he has, yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah, attending some TripleCon event, and then happened to be at the same hotel as Marcus, and sharing bottles of whiskey.
Yeah, it was all about that. No, but you know what I'm saying. He did an incredible job of taking that brand and inserting themselves into the community that had a very big distaste for that brand, and turning it around, in my opinion. And I've talked to him several times, and it seems that he's a genuine guy, and it seems that he really loves what he does.
Yeah,
and
he's
he loves
incredibly genuine.
And let's, since we know all that, let's rewind for a second. Now,
Okay.
do you remember what GoDaddy's reputation and stance in the WordPress community was before Mendel came around?
Yes, everybody disliked it. They said the company had horrible service, and of course their CEO killed elephants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was the absolute worst. And then on top of that, you had all the macho commercial Super Bowl ads that dealt with scantily clad women, and it was just a company that not too many people wanted to deal with for any number of reasons, on top of just pure performance and what have you.
And then they started bringing out
Jeff King to come in, and Chris Carfy and Mendel to go into the WordPress community, where, I mean, WordPress powers so many sites on the web, and they probably, all of their customers probably have WordPress-based sites. It makes complete and total sense to have somebody on the ground within these camps to hear their complaints and to have them say, hey, things are changing, and he's taken a lot of feedback from what he's heard, and now GoDaddy has this managed WordPress hosting, which I've heard is pretty killer compared to their basic shared hosting plans, and their reputation, because of Mendel and Jeff King and some of the things that they've been doing at their company with the website and the commercials, it's made a 180-degree difference.
Yeah, and I think it all started with GoDaddy when they made management changes and then decided to.
Once they started at the top and it trickled down.
Right. So I looked at that situation as a great example of what could be done, and I felt like that was me, right? I felt like after all these years, if there's one definition or one title I would give myself, it would be WordPress evangelist, right, or community evangelist, because it's just who I am. It's who I am in my core. It's what I do every day online. It's what I do when I meet people. Oh, you need a website? Well, check out WordPress and do this and this and this.
So did
So
the
I
job
started.
title in the ad actually say WordPress Evangelist?
I believe it did. I believe it was WordPress Evangelist. I set up some searches on Indeed.com. That one came through my feed, and one thing led to another. And I had interviewed with a couple of places, and I think I mentioned this to you, Jeff, before, that one, I made it to the final round and was not chosen, with a company that will go unnamed, but they're good and they're big. And then another one that I interviewed with that I did not get a good vibe from at all. I felt like their values did not align with my values as it pertains to WordPress and open source and transparency and doing things for the community, to benefit the community. So when SiteLock came around, and I talked to Neil Feather, the president of SiteLock. We had a good long talk, and it was very relaxed and very open. And I just got a really good feeling that their business and their minds were in the right place, and hearts were in the right place to serve the community better. So then I started looking into their service. I put it on my site, immediately found 120 malware links and some old comment threads from 2008, 2009 that some other security solutions didn't find. So that was good. That helped me decide to move forward. And then when I visited the headquarters in Arizona, it was clear to me that everyone there is committed, and the wealth of knowledge there in the research and development department for the malware, there's a lot of smart people there. So because I felt like those values aligned with mine, and they were happy with me, I gladly accepted the position. And let's see, in the last 3.5 months, it's been good. And so to define the WordPress Evangelist position, what I do is engage the community in person. I listen to what people are experiencing and take those things back to the company and say, well, how can we do this? How can we better serve the community? What kind of things can we do that we're not currently doing that would benefit people? And then, of course, just talk about website security and how important it is.
So I know you've recently acquired a position, but I feel like I'm going to let Marcus out of the cage here a little bit because he has some questions and some feedback. And I guess I would go so far as to say some criticism of SiteLock and its website. And don't take any of this personally, but if you have any insight on any of this, feel free to let us know, or if there's something afoot going on where maybe it'll be addressed.
Well,
okay, shoot.
There's no cage here. I mean, obviously, you're kind enough to appear on the show, so I'm not going to skewer you too bad, at least. So here's the thing. When I go to SiteLock, I go to SiteLock.com, I'm not feeling the WordPress love. The only reference even to WordPress on that site is a slider. There's one frame of a slider.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to wpdistrict.sitelock.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I have to find my product and see where everything is. Now, if there's such a commitment in terms of the WordPress community, where is it?
Right. Well, it's at wpdistrict.sitelock.com and at SiteLock as a whole. So SiteLock started in 2008. They currently scan 8 million websites a day, and 1 million of those are WordPress sites. So to be specifically WordPress on the main site is something that may be addressed in the future.
Nobody wants
right
specific.
Now,
GoDaddy isn't specific to WordPress, but they sure do offer it. You can sure find it.
Right. Yeah. So, well, maybe that's a room for improvement there, but that's what the district site is meant to hold and encompass, and that's meant as the WordPress portal, if you will.
Well,
Okay.
I can sort of see and understand that because SiteLock is platform agnostic. It's not just WordPress.
That's true.
Yeah, I get it. I just didn't see the presence, and so it's hard to feel that love of community when it's just kind of one section of a slider. It
Well, what
just
do you have
didn't.
against one frame and a slider, Marcus?
Sounds a little rushed. I don't know. Especially with what you're saying, if you have the technology within the company to literally scan millions of websites, how about working on your own for a little bit? That would be nice. And then
Well, that's feedback that I will take to heart, and
just play this back verbatim. You can do that. So here's the other thing that makes me a little nervous is now I've not used the service. After I finally found out where to find it and how much it was, I was pretty intrigued by it. I was surprised that there wasn't an initial scan offering in terms of things like what Security does, where you can just scan your site and see if there's any vulnerabilities to it. But I was taken aback by the number of reviews that are out there and some of the tactics that some of these consumers are claiming. I mean, they're claiming like boiler room situation in terms of your call center to shakedowns of people with hacked sites, and there's even grumblings of people talking about class action lawsuits. And so, I mean, obviously you're not to blame for any of this, but has the company acknowledged this previous behavior and wanted to correct it? I mean, what steps are in place for that?
well, good question. So, the first priority of SiteLock is our customers, right? So, any issues that customers have, we're definitely committed to working with them to address and resolve any challenges that we find. So in terms of your question, it is being addressed, and each of those is an individual case, and there are two sides to every story. But if my intuition and my gut and my due diligence is any indication, I'm 100% confident that that will not be something you'll find in the years to come.
I mean,
Okay.
for example, if you go on Google and do a couple searches, you might come across sitelock.pissconsumer.com, where there's about, I don't know, there's about 50 reviews, but I mean, that site's geared towards only seeing one side of the story.
Of course.
Right. So what I would say is put SiteLock to the test, and let the service speak for itself. And to answer your question about no free scan or no initial scan right away, the reason for that, in my estimation, is that SiteLock scans from the inside out. So when you have the smart scanner in your account, you connect via FTP. And what SiteLock Scan does is it downloads all the files from your site, scans them, and looks for any existing malware. And the difference with SiteLock from other services is that we do auto malware removal. So if there's any malware found, it removes it and uploads those files back to your site. That includes core WordPress files, plugins, themes, what have you. So that would be the reason that there's no initial scan, because you have to have an account first.
So one of the things I was going to ask you is there's a pretty popular, outside of security that we all know about, there's also a pretty popular security scanning protection plugin known as VaultPress, owned and operated by Automatic. And how does SiteLock stack up or compare to something like VaultPress?
Well, I wish I had a definitive answer to that, but I haven't used. I mean, I haven't used VaultPress myself, so
Okay.
I'm not really familiar with the other than the cursory understanding of what VaultPress is and when they launched. But I don't really have firsthand experience with the admin and the whole process there, so I just can't answer that one.
That'll be your first purchase requisition when you get back to the office. Guys, we need to look at this vault press. So we have a frame of reference for what the community looks for and uses. Okay, so here's the other thing. I'm going to just come up with a final thing here that I thought was kind of weird with SiteLock, is that it deposits this kind of old Hacker Safe used to be this way. It would deposit this little, hey, we scanned the site on this day and it's secure, and click here for the
little badge,
the little certificate. Yeah, but you're showing do follow backlinks on those babies. And I did an SEMrush scan, and there's over 1 million links going into SiteLock.com. Has anybody thought of that and what the implications are to that?
Well, I can't answer that question. I don't know if others have considered that, or what the background is on that, but it's definitely something good to know about, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And I will look into that and see what the purpose of that is, and see if that's the best route to go.
Well, ask Mendel. I do have a very good Evangelist advisor service that I do on the side.
Yeah. By virtue of Adam Warner being on WordPress Weekly, SiteLock is going to be like 2 times as awesome. You know that? Courtesy of Microsoft and Jeff Chandler.
Well, I bring up those things because, look, if I find them in 10 minutes, everybody else will too. And so you, as the evangelist and as ambassador into the WordPress community, you've got to kind of clean up their mess from perhaps how they dealt with business in the past, or it sometimes comes down to even just who was running the support center or something like that. And what's your plan for that? I mean, how do you plan on changing the meme and bringing it into WordPress standards?
Well, as I said, and as you've stated, that is my job, is to listen to the community and to take note of all the feedback we get, and then look at that, bring it to the team, and see which of those things are actionable and in what order. What are we going to do about this, or what are we going to do about that? The first thing we're going to do is listen and make sure that we're getting the feedback, negative and positive, that we need to hear to make a better product and a better service. And that's not to say it's not a great product and a great service, because I'm fully committed to that belief. But I'm also been raised in the blue-collar manufacturing world in the continuous improvement era.
Sure.
So there's always room for improvement. But yeah, any feedback is good feedback as far as I'm concerned. And all I can tell you is, as a longtime community member, I would never stake my reputation on something that I didn't believe in personally.
Well, that's great to hear. And so what is the company's plans in terms of commitments of like sponsoring WordCamps and things like that? Is that something that's going to be planned to be ongoing?
Yes, at this point there is no plan to stop. I don't know the exact number, but we're somewhere in the range of 7 to 10 sponsorships this year, including WordCamp Europe and WordCamp US. We have myself covering the East Coast and going to Austria next week, as well as my cohort Logan Kipp covering the West Coast. So we're hitting a lot of WordCamps this year, and the reason we're doing that is to listen, to engage, and to ultimately make the community a better place.
And I think, as a WordPress evangelist, going to these WordCamps and actually speaking face-to-face with these SiteLock customers, I think over time it really opens your eyes to how real people think and value the product and the company that you're working for. And I wonder how many times you'll end up scratching your head going, wow, I didn't realize that, but that's awesome. I'll push it up the ladder to our team and see if we can't get that implemented immediately.
Sure, yeah, and that's what I love most and look forward to hearing more of, and that's really just a general product and service benefit. When you can talk to someone face to face and have a conversation that's not on a support forum or over the phone even, and listen and learn exactly how they're using it or what their hurdles might be with setting things up or continuing to use a product or service. In the Foo plugins world, in the plugins world in general, you can add a ton of features, but until you see how people are really using those features or not using them, all of that work is for nothing. So in terms of getting feedback from the community, that's a great point, and I hope to learn a lot more as the years go on.
Now, I don't know how much you probably can't speak towards this because you're not the owner of SiteLock or whatnot, but I'm curious just to get your opinion on with the WordPress Evangelist role and what you're doing at these WordCamps for the company and getting the feedback and pushing things, suggestions, ideas, bottlenecks up the chain. Where is the return on investment of you being this WordPress evangelist and attending these WordCamps? Is it more customers, happier customers? What's the return that SiteLock gets from your engagement of the WordPress community?
Well, I can't speak to all of the answers to that because I just don't know because I'm not, like you said, I'm not the owner or the president or the upper management of SiteLock. But what I can say is, in my estimation, the ROI for the company is going to be, one, to get that feedback, to pivot or change products or services to better meet the needs of the community, or create better new products and services that would be that would have an additional value add. So I would say, from my perspective as an evangelist, the ROI really is understanding the needs of WordPress users specifically in terms of website security and what isn't being covered yet, or what isn't being covered in the way that SiteLock can do it.
So as we've seen with Mendel Curlin and GoDaddy and Jeff King, there were a lot of promises, there were a lot of things that were said when they were initially trying to change things around, and a lot of people, I believe a lot of people probably brushed it off, said, yeah, right, there's no way you can change things around here, a lot of things are set in stone. But a year or two later, results speak louder than, or actions speak louder than words, and we're seeing the results of these changes that have taken place. So it'll be interesting to possibly have you back within a year from now, and hopefully, you're still the WordPress evangelist. Everything is going great for you, and just talk about your foray into all the various WordCamps and the feedback. And it would be great to have you back on and tell us the different ways and facets that SiteLock has improved just based on your ability to speak face to face with all of the with WordPress users of the company service.
Yeah, well, I would love to come back and report that. Absolutely.
So, other than that, Marcus, any last questions here before we wrap it up with Adam and let him go?
No, I applaud his effort. I really hope that it becomes even more of an extension of WordPress, so that it's like the same breadth as Securi and all those other extensions that we use. So I'm looking forward to trying it out myself. I'm gonna sign up and see how it works.
Hey man, I'll say that anytime you can work for a company that's going to pay your way, the traveling and lodging for WordCamps, that's a pretty sweet gig. It's a huge benefit. One last question here, just sort of off the top of my head. Adam, is there a difference between WordPress fanboy and WordPress evangelist?
Not much. No.
One makes a paycheck.
If I was back in 2009 when I started the tavern, boy, a lot of people call me WordPress fanboy, and I felt I was offended by that.
Yeah. Well, I would say the difference is a fanboy or fangirl has no other purpose than to, elevate whatever their subject is. So if I'm a WordPress fanboy, all I'm doing is loving WordPress because it's WordPress. But I would call myself an evangelist because not only do I love the software, I love the community, I love the spirit of open source, but I also love spreading that word to other people to get them to understand that they could utilize the software to change their paths, to create their own futures. And I'm actually going to be doing a talk about that in the fall at WordCamp Ann Arbor, about going from blue collar to what I do now, and all the stepping stones along the way. So, a true evangelist I am in that sense.
Yeah, well said. I totally agree. So, how can people stay in touch with you, find more information about you, what you do, your plugins, and SiteLock?
I can be found at SiteLock on Twitter, or at WPModder on Twitter. Also at adamwwarner.com. That's kind of my funnel for all my other stuff. You'll get links to Foo plugins there to succeed with WP, and also to wpdistrict.sitelock.com.
And within the next few weeks and months, any WordPress events that you know for sure you're going to be attending?
Yes, I will be in Austria next week at WordCamp Europe. Then after that, I will be in my hometown of Sarasota, Florida at WP Campus, which is a non-WordCamp event, but it focuses on higher education, put on by Rachel Carden and the gang. It's the first ever, so it's going to be good, I think. And then after that, I will be Boston, back to Ohio, New Orleans, Nashville, etc., etc., etc.
Oh man, you're gonna start earning those frequent flyer miles, man.
I am already racking them up.
Well, thanks a lot for being part of the show. Enjoyed having you on, and man, it sounds like you got a sweet gig. And like I said, hopefully a year from now, we're talking about results and all the improvements and benefits that SiteLock is experiencing directly because of your feedback and interaction with customers. It'll be cool to have a 1 year in review with you. So the pressure's on, buddy.
All right, let's put it on the calendar. I'm ready.
On. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jeff and Marcus, for having me on. I appreciate it. And
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evenings, gentlemen.
We shall.
Thank you very much. So everybody, that was Adam Warner of foodplugins.com and also the WordPress Evangelist for SiteLock. Cool cat. Met him. I had a chance to meet him face to face at WordCamp Northeast Ohio, and man, it was a good time. Enjoyed finally getting a chance to meet him. Somebody I haven't had a chance to meet pretty much since I started in the WordPress community. So, Marcus, I think overall pretty good interview right there.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna set up an Indeed search for WordPress Evangelist.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, you're not hiring for a WordPress Evangelist for membership coach, are you?
Maybe someday, I hope.
No, okay. So, speaking of WordCamp Northeast Ohio, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I had the privilege to attend the event this past weekend. It was organized by Rich Robenkopf and Angela Bergman, and it was held at the Kent State University Conference Center and Hotel, which is pretty much just right across the street from Kent State University. Had a number of fantastic sessions, some awesome keynotes. One thing I thought was pretty cool is that the keynotes started off the event, so they were the first session of the day. And I think by doing that, if it's an awesome keynote, it sort of sets the stage for the rest of the day. So I really enjoyed that. Lunch was great. I know lunch was on the second day. Lunch was not provided on the first day, which was okay because you were within walking distance of so many different great venues for restaurants. And it also gave sort of the WordCamp organizers the opportunity to allow the attendees to sort of support the city economically by going out and purchasing lunch. So I thought that was a neat idea. I just had a really great time. The after party on Saturday was held at a local bowling alley, and during this time of year, students are out of school. It's summertime. Nobody goes bowling apparently because this place was empty. But the food, the appetizers were great, and then we ended up having 8 bowling lanes to ourselves. And I found out, Marcus, that A, doing that type of physical activity hurts. B, alcohol limits the pain, and C, I suck at bowling. So I discovered all three of those things that night, but I had a great time. It's one of the most enjoyable WordCamp after parties I attended, and you could hear everybody. You didn't have to scream. There was a quiet zone that you could talk to people with, so that was cool. And then just overall, just a fantastic event. And I want to give a shout out to the staff of the Kent State University Hotel and Conference Center, because sometimes with the organizers, depending on how you have things catered, the staff has to do all sorts of work. But these folks, they made sure that the beverage center was always stocked, the ice was always there in the ice bucket, the coffee was always hot. They just kept bringing food out whenever the food looked low. They did a really great job. There's an audio-video technician guy within distance anytime a technical issue came up. These guys and gals were on top of it all. So kudos to them. And it's got to be a great feeling as a WordCamp organizer if you're working in an event that has that type of staff, that they're so willing and able to do such a great job. So shout out to them. I mean, that was very cool to see. And I, along with a number of other attendees, actually said thank you to the staff members there, which they really appreciated.
Well, so much so that I saw that they even made a comment on the tavern.
Oh, yeah.
About your wrap-up post, which I thought was very unusual to be kind of in our world in terms of the food and beverage manager and events manager for that hotel. And you brought up an interesting point in that article as well, which is it's always fantastic when you can have the hotel and the event center in one location. I can't tell you how great that is to just be able to run up to your room in between sessions or whatever that is. It's just a nice thing. I always experience it when I attend different conferences in Las Vegas, and it's nice to see that you got that experience at a WordCamp as well.
Yeah, I mean, once you start going to a couple of events where you have to walk or travel some distance or get an Uber to the venue, and then you stay at a place where the hotel and the venue is the same building, the convenience of that cannot be overstated. It is such a luxury to have. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Just go up to your room, take a nap, come back down, do whatever you have to. I mean, you're up there, you're down. I mean, you could do all that within a 15-minute break in between sessions. You can't miss a beat.
Yeah, and it's especially handy for after the event, because then you can just kind of meet somebody down at the lobby, go have a drink, go have some fun, and then I'm tired, I'm going to my room. Right?
Yeah, it's all right there. So big thank you, big shout out to Angela Bergman and Rich Robenkoff for organizing this year's event, and a handful of volunteers that also helped make the event run smoothly. This was the first and last WordCamp Northeast Ohio, primarily because the way that the guidelines are for WordCamps, they have to be named after a city now. So this was named after a region here in the U.S. We can no longer do that. So next year is possibly going to be named either WordCamp Kent or WordCamp Kent State. We'll see. But it looks like the organizers are sort of getting together, and if we're lucky, it will be held in the same venue and location, which would be awesome because they did such a great time this year. They'd probably be able to do a repeat performance next year.
I don't agree with the naming convention rule. I think that's ridiculous.
And how so? I mean, how so?
If you tell me WordCamp Kent, I don't know where that is.
That's kind of funny because that's sort of why we changed it to WordCamp Northeast Ohio, because nobody knew where nobody knew where North Canton was, which is what the event was named before. So we did Northeast Ohio, which Ohio is sort of in a unique. It's unique around here because Northeast Ohio, you have Cleveland, Youngstown, Cleveland, or Akron, Canton, and then there you go. That whole region is like Northeast Ohio, and to an effect, Cleveland and sometimes up north is like they feel like they're totally separated from Akron, Canton area. It's like two totally different regions, but because of the naming conventions, we're just gonna have to be very specific for next year. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
I don't like it because in some specific regions, you need that. You need that identification. So, what can you do? That's their rule. So,
if anybody out there uses the Image Optimizer plugin, I had a great time saying that. You want to make sure that you have automatically updated it because it had a critical security vulnerability, and it was actually disclosed by the team over at WordFence. And according to WordFence, the vulnerability affected multi-site WordPress installations, and it allowed an attacker to gain complete control of a site by creating a backdoor or taking the site down altogether. So that's a big, nasty one. Now, the WordFence actually rated this vulnerability as a 9.6 out of 10 on the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, meaning it's big, bad, and ugly. But the developer actually pushed out an update immediately. So automatic updates should have already been pushed out, and you should have them. Hopefully, if they're already installed. If not, you should double check your website. And this plugin is actually active on more than 300 WordPress sites, and it's got an average star rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. So Bishop is doing a really good job being a great active developer, and most of the support threads on there in the WordPress.org support forum are marked as resolved or have been replied to. So overall, it just shows sort of the commitment he has to this particular plugin, and good on him for getting a release or a fix out there quickly to patch the security vulnerability. And I don't know, Mark, have you ever had an opportunity
he just had a gap in the code.
EWWW, the Image Optimizer plugin?
No, I haven't. I use WP Smush.
Oh, yeah.
I use the one that's hooked to
That's
Tiny
another
PNG.
popular one.
Yeah. So I haven't used that, but all he did, he had a gap in his code. That's all.
So just double check your WordPress installations if you have them. Make sure they're up to date. And shiny updates. Now, we sort of talked about this on one of the previous episodes of WordPress Weekly, but it's actually been approved for a partial merge into WordPress 4.6. So what that means is that the shiny update functionality is going to be added to most of the places in the back end where you could do plugin and theme updates. But when it comes to updating WordPress core, there's still some issues, design issues that need to be worked out. So they're going to continue iterating on the feature, and that'll probably be one of the things that are added to WordPress 4.7. But as it is for themes and plugins, multi-sites, you'll be able to do shiny updates. And I like I said, I think it's one of the features that we won't realize we love until we start using it on an everyday basis, and it's going to make people's lives just that much easier when it comes to managing WordPress sites, because things happen so much quicker. You just click a button, boom, it's done, and there you go. You move on to the next task.
You know, you bring something up that I thought of the other day, and I've been working on. I have one client in particular that has a multi-site, and boy, is it a pain in order to change things around, and if you have different themes and different plugins and different installations. I'm wondering when we're going to get a major revision to the multi-site concept. It's been a while since we've had anything really centric around multi-site.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's come up a couple of times that there are sort of different initiatives that the core team has been looking at in terms of multi-site developments, but you're right. I mean, there hasn't been a WordPress release, a major version release, where the focal point has been multi-site, and as you said, I wonder when or if we'll ever see that. I guess it would be kind of refreshing to have a release catered just for multi-site.
I mean, there are a lot of plugins that WPMU puts out that bridge the gap, so to speak, but there are some core functionalities that I'd like to see, or at least even a switch of the navigational path that you have to take to get back and forth between sites, and it's sorely lacking that update, and I hope that they address that soon.
So there was this was the week of big releases, big major releases for plugins, and one of them is WooCommerce 2.6, which is called Zipping Zebra. That's kind of a cool name, but this release has actually been 5 months in development. It's got 1,700 commits from 25 different contributors, so a whole lot of things have gone into WooCommerce 2.6. So one of the major features is called shipping zones. So this allows store owners to have more flexibility in pricing, price shipping based on location. So you can now create zones that group continents, countries, states, and zip codes together, and each zone can be assigned its own available shipping method. So that's pretty cool. And there's also been some design changes to the account pages. So instead of seeing a ton of information that appear to be disorganized, this rehash sort of puts everything into it's a lot easier to read. One of the other things that have been worked on is that the REST API has been updated to use the WordPress REST API scaffolding. So it'll actually be ready when the full API is merged into WordPress core. So there's a lot of cool features on WooCommerce 2.6. And Marcus, I don't know if you currently use WooCommerce. I know you've talked about using it before, but you got to like some of these cool changes coming down the pike here.
Absolutely. Now, I would take that shipping zone thing a little bit further, and if you could, designate who you wanted your shipper to be for each of those zones to be able to figure that out. So they took it about halfway in terms of where they need to be, but it sounds like they've got just that last mile to go.
So you know what's going to happen on next week's Marcus on next week's plugin picks of the week. You're going to have a plugin that does just that, I bet you.
There are plenty already.
How about that? So congrats to the WooCommerce team on your launch of WooCommerce 2.6. They're already hard at work on 2.7. And one of the other major plugins, commercial plugins, that was released this week is Gravity Forms 2.0. This release is pretty cool. So now you have conditional logic, which is now supported by more fields, and you can use it on multi-input fields such as the name and address. And some of the underlying code that powers conditional logic has been improved, and most of that is to allow the foundation for upcoming add-ons that are actually going to utilize the conditional logic code. And Gravity Forms is a plugin. Ever since I discovered it back in the day, they've had this, I guess, mindset or mentality that to use stuff that's built into WordPress core whenever possible instead of reinventing the wheel. And they're doing it again with the 2.0 release by using responsive table elements, which is part of WordPress core, on the form list and entry list screens. So now if you're browsing the Gravity Forms admin on a mobile display, you'll see a nice responsive, it'll look great, it'll be responsive, and you'll see the menu up at the top, and just like WordPress core does. So that's pretty nice. And there's also column sorting now that's been added to the table, so now you can sort between things. And there's a whole gamut of other features as well, such as Recaptcha 2.0 for your forms. And this release also has some accessibility improvements and some security hardening enhancements just to make it that much more secure. And by the way, developers, if you're a developer who utilizes Gravity Forms on client sites, you definitely want to go check out the full changelog because there's been a few items and features that have been deprecated, and a couple of items related to backwards compatibility have been removed. So those might come into play if you upgrade to 2.0 and you see something awry. That might be the issue there. But congrats on the Gravity Forms team on the release of 2.0.
Did they rebuild the form builder?
That I'm not entirely sure. You see, it's been a number of years. This is actually the first time in years that I've actually seen the Gravity Forms admin. It's the first time I've checked it out. And one of the cool things I wanted to bring this up is I used to use Gravity Forms on the Tavern way back when, so 6-7 years ago. And when I installed it the other day, because I didn't delete the information created by the plugin that's in the database, it was as if I uninstalled it yesterday or something. The database tables or the information about my forms was still there. So when I installed Gravity Forms, my contact form that I used to have back in the day is still there. My Tavern Weekly form was still there. So I just thought that was really interesting. That this is why you don't. I probably explicitly did not choose not to delete the information when I deactivated the plugin, and I'm happy I did that. And I'm glad that Gravity Forms is one of the plugins that sort of set the standard in terms of when you deactivate it, do not remove or delete information unless explicitly told so by the user. So I was appreciative of that.
Yeah, well, until they build that form builder up, I've still got a problem with it. I mean, come on, look at like Ninja Forms. They've figured it out. You're telling me Rocket Genius can't do it?
Well, I mean, what's the issue you have with the form builder?
Well,
Is it
you
drag
can't
and
put things
drop?
side by side. I can't drag and drop in 2 columns. I mean, you can if you program the hell out of it. I mean, I've seen stuff that Jeff Mattson does that just freak me out in terms of, building these immense, pre-calculated forms that figure out totals based on products and blah, blah, blah. But out of the box, Gravity Forms is not that great in terms of the interface. I stumped you.
Sorry about that. I have to edit that part out because my dog was barking because the cat was camping the water bowl. Go figure, huh? So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of news, which means it's time for that's your intro, Marcus, for the plugin picks of the week.
Okay, we've got some good ones this week. The first one is called Menu Duplicator, and it actually lets you quickly duplicate any WordPress menu that you've already got set up. Very simple user interface to just clone that menu and then create another one. Now, this would work if you've got a membership site. Perhaps you just want to show one specific menu to members, the other one to non-members, or logged in, logged out, whatever you want to do. Perhaps you want to assign a specific menu to mobile. This is a great way to do it, to where you can take your original navigation and then just chop off the stuff you don't want. It's called Menu Duplicator, very handy plugin. We were talking about conditional logic before, and lo and behold, look what just came out for Contact Form 7. It's called Fields. And it adds conditional logic to this popular contact plugin. It's very similar to the Gravity Forms conditional logic function, though I have not seen 2.0's update of that. But if you use Contact Form 7, which is a free plugin available in the repository, this will allow you very similar functionality in terms of conditional fields. And Jeff, this one's very fun. This plugin I tried out for a number of different sites and themes. It's called Right-Click Menu. Now, Jeff, you've been, I'm assuming, to some of these websites where maybe you've right-clicked the button, or you have a Mac, so I don't even think you have a right button, but where it's like a ban, like, sorry, you can't be anything on this website. You ever seen that?
I've done that. It's the whole plagiarism copyright protection scheme.
Yeah, but this is a very cool way to kind of extend that functionality. What this plugin called Right-Click Menu does is actually it displays a navigation menu when you right-click, rather than any kind of ban or anything like that. So it completely takes over. I've tried it in both Chrome and Firefox, and it worked great. The one thing that I had as an issue was that it sort of loaded for about a half a second, the menu on top of where my header is, and then went away. So it was like once the CSS took over, finally found its place in the background, but I did notice that little skip, so maybe that's something that the developer can take a look at. Otherwise, I thought it was very cool. It's called Right-Click Menu, and those are my plugin picks of the week.
Now, I'm still waiting for the content protection plugin where you do a right-click and it gives you a notice that, within, you have 30 seconds to evacuate. That's probably taking it too far. But,
or using that,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Playing a video of that witch that screams, that scares the hell out of kids on YouTube.
Yeah. Hey, you wanna try and get my image? Ah! Oh man, that'd be interesting. So that's gonna do it for this episode of WordPress Weekly. Before we close it out here, a couple things. I will actually be at WordCamp Oklahoma City on July 30th. Purchased my tickets today.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that was a mistake, because right now it's in the upper 90s and near 100, and I can only imagine it's probably going to be that warm, if not warmer. So we'll have to see how that turns out. But I'm going to be there. The event is on July 30th. There's still tickets available if you're listening to this or want to travel to the fine state of Oklahoma. This is actually the first WordCamp for the state, so it'll be fun to ring in this event with a bunch of other Okies. And as for special guest, Marcus, I pulled some strings, and unless the schedule changes, Matt Mulloeg will be our guest on July 6th. So that's in about, let's see, 1, 2, 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And, you and I will play, instead of playing 20 questions, we'll play 1 million questions, because that's about how many I have for Matt.
Yeah, and listeners out there, if you have a question for Matt Mullenweg, either tweet it or just get it to us somehow, and we'll ask it within reason.
That's right. And I've already informed Matt that we've run out of softballs. All we have is hardballs.
You still agree to come on. That's great.
Yeah. So
I also am going to be. I will be at WordCamp Orange County on the 9th of July. So that's just a couple of days after Matt's interview. So anybody coming to WordCamp Orange County, that'd be a great event to come and say hi.
Nice. I won't be able to make it out this year, but I expect a full detailed report on the following episode of WordPress Weekly.
You will get it.
All right. So that's you can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes on wptavern.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro. That's JEFFR0. Marcus?
You can find me at my new site, membershipcoach.com, and on Twitter at Marcus Couch.
Well, everybody enjoy the rest of your week. It's hump day, so we're almost there to the weekend. And we'll talk to you again next Wednesday evening. Until then, take care, everybody.